So let's look into hypnosis in a little bit more depth. In this video, I want to discuss 3 elements of hypnotic trance. So when it comes to doing your own pieces of self-hypnosis, these are things you really need to watch out for. They are also extremely useful to know about to help you become a much better and much more effective trance subject, so that your self-hypnosis will become easier and much more effective. So the first of these we have already covered, and that is absorption. Hypnosis is where we become deeply absorbed in a single element of experience. It's one of these things. In modern day life, we seem to be trained to focus on so many different things all at the one time. You look at something like Facebook. You could practically spend your entire day watching 55 videos of cats doing really funny and bizarre things. It wouldn't be a particularly productive day, but you could waste time doing that. That's your prerogative. But that's not really going deep into any particular aspect of our experience. Hypnosis is the opposite to that. It really is about moving away from the surface level appreciation of many different things to really letting go into one single experience and becoming deeply absorbed as each passing moment goes by. And some of the examples I gave you were, of course, when you're in the supermarket. To give you a couple more, could be when you're reading a book and you're just so absorbed in the book. It could be 50 Shades of Grey or something like that. Or maybe you're watching a movie or a TV box set on Netflix, and it's like you've become so locked into this imaginary world. Have you ever gone to see a movie and then by the end of it, the movie has changed you in some capacity? And I have. That's my indication of a really good movie. If you think about it, that is a quality piece of hypnotic change work. You've sat down in the seat, you've focused on a single element of experience, you've lost yourself in this imaginary world, and it's then caused you to reevaluate the way that you think, the way that you feel, and potentially the meaning that you draw from experience. That's incredible if you think about it. So absorption is a key aspect of hypnotic trance. So when it comes to your self-hypnosis practice, what I want you to think about before you even get to the stage of hypnotizing yourself or leading you through some sort of self-hypnosis process, have a think. How comfortable are you becoming deeply absorbed in experience? What aspects of your life really pull you in? Maybe you love to read. Maybe you love to watch movies. Maybe there are particular activities where you just become so locked in and focused, it's almost like the rest of the world just simply disappears. Because it's these experiences, they'll be your resources when it comes to producing a state of self-hypnosis. So just have a think at the moment what those are. Later on in the program, I'm going to be taking you through a trance induction, a self-hypnosis trance induction that utilizes your natural trance experiences. But for just now, just have a think. When are you deeply absorbed? I know there'll be something, even if you're the most scatterbrained person on the entire planet, there will be some aspect of your experience where you let go and you become deeply focused and deeply absorbed. So have a think about that right now. The second element is the use of the imagination. As you go into hypnosis, as you go into trance, then you start to become more imaginative. If you remember, hypnosis is all about engaging and reconnecting with your innate creativity. And creativity is driven by your imagination. In my opinion, imagination is so incredibly important when it comes to change work. Imagination is almost like that pathway, that link between your cognitive faculties, your conscious mind, and your unconscious resources. We use our imagination to almost like delve down deeper into ourselves, grab some good stuff, and then bring it back up into the waking state so that we can use it as a choice. And that's one of the great things about going into self-hypnosis, is that you really start to engage more in your imagination. Tell you a funny story. A couple of years ago, I was doing a hypnotherapy practitioner course in Scotland. And I was teaching a very famous technique by Milton H. Erickson called the early learning set. Now this involves taking a person back to when they were very young, when they were like 4, 5 or 6 years old. So it involves doing age regression. And then from there you do some very profound change work. Now I was demonstrating this in front of a group of around about 15 people. And I started to do baby impressions. So I started to do things like clearly that's not the best baby impression, or maybe you did quite enjoy it. Now, someone in the audience was in such a deeply imaginative state because they had been going in and out of trance for about 2 or 3 days, that all of a sudden they started bursting into fits of hysterical laughter. And eventually I said to her, "What's going on with you?" And she said, "Well, after you did that baby impression, I can't stop seeing you in a nappy." Now, straight away, as soon as she said this, that suggestion spread like wildfire, and everybody in the room was in absolute hysterical laughter. In fact, I nearly had to stop the session and go for a break because it was just totally out of control. But for me, this was a very good sign. It showed that they were in one of these altered states that was stimulating their imagination. They were starting to step into and consider choices that perhaps they hadn't considered before. They were really stepping into their imagination and acting as if it's true. And this is one of the key things that you want to pay attention to as you start to practice self-hypnosis. You will become more imaginative, and this is a wonderful thing. You might simply allow your imagination to wander off, or you'll pick some particular subject and then you'll aim the power of your imagination, the power of your own creativity at this particular area, and then allow the deeper parts of yourself to generate all manner of new and much more profound choices. Imagination is the key. So I think I've made that really quite clear. And then we have responsiveness. Generally, when we start to go into hypnosis, we start to respond slightly differently than what we do when we're in the normal waking state. Generally, for me, it's the difference between doing and allowing. Usually when we are consciously responding, we are doing. We are investing lots of conscious energy. For example, if I was to ask you right now to consciously lift up your hand, you would probably go like this. Whereas if I was to ask you to allow your hand to drift up, you can put some conscious effort in, but simply just allow it to lift up. It would probably look a little bit like this. And you'd be aware of it. I know that looks really quite strange just now. You would be aware of it going up, but you'd kind of just like let it happen. And that's the difference between doing and allowing. It's the difference between responding consciously and responding unconsciously. You're still aware of it, but it's just kind of happening automatically. There's a very different energy to it. To give you another example, think of any skill that you've learned to do. It could be writing, could be reading, could be driving a car, it could be talking, it could be walking, it could be anything. At one point, you learn to do that skill, but now you don't really think about it. For example, if you go to read a book, you don't sit there and go, okay, how is it I read again? Okay, what are the vowels? What are the consonants? A, B, C, D, E, F. You don't suddenly go through the letters of the alphabet and try to restructure it. You just simply do it. You allow the process to happen. That's an example of responding unconsciously. Multiplication is another one. If I was to say to you, what's 6 times 7? You wouldn't have to kind of go like this and onto your feet and all sorts of stuff. You would simply just do it because you've learned to do it unconsciously. So when we go into hypnosis, and this is something that you're going to experience as you continue to practice self-hypnosis, is that you will simply just allow yourself to go with the process. So I would encourage you simply just to let go and allow it to happen. And that doesn't mean that you just meander off to a completely different place. You're still focusing your attention, you are still investing some kind of effort, you're guiding your intention, but it's more you're just kind of letting it happen. It's quite a difficult thing to explain, but I'm sure as you start to practice, you'll get more and more experience of what that feels like. So I would say these are the 3 main elements of hypnosis. But I want to give you one frame that, in my opinion, encapsulates all of these 3 elements, and that's playfulness. For me, as soon as you go into a place of playfulness, then these three things basically take care of themselves. When you are fully in play mode, when you're just allowing yourself to have fun and be playful with something, then generally it presupposes that you are absorbed in some experience. It also involves a high use of the imagination, and you also generally just do when you're playing. When we're playing, we don't kind of start to analyse and go, oh, is that right or is that wrong? Oh, I'm not sure. We just kind of allow the thing to happen. Quite a few years ago, I did a class on improvisation, and at the time it completely freaked me out because I was not the most playful person. I liked to rehearse everything when I was speaking. I was very much a rule person, I guess. And for me, doing improvisation was one of the most profound experiences that I've ever had because it forced me into this place of simply just playing. And strangely enough, after I did the improvisation class, I turned into one of the best hypnotic subjects you can possibly ever meet. And I struggled with it before that. And for me, it's all down to this frame of playfulness. Again, if you look at kids, kids are incredible examples of trance subjects. They just go from one piece of hypnosis to another. They can pull people into their trances. They can play games and get adults to act like horses and build castles, and none of that's even there, simply because they're in this place of playfulness. So, I think I've made my point really quite clear here and very definite, that what you're looking to do is to cultivate each of these three different elements. And just a single word or a single frame to encapsulate all of this is to be more playful. So in order to be a better subject when it comes to self-hypnosis, I want you just to have a think. How willing are you to let go and be playful? Because the degree to which you're willing to do this will directly impact how good a trance subject you are. So I hope you found this useful, and when you're ready, head over to the next video. See you shortly.